Welcome to Jags Drive Time with John Oehser, Brian Sexton, and Kai Stevens. Jags Drive Time starts right now.
Welcome in. I'm Kainani Stevens for this May 23rd edition of Jags Drive Time. Of course, joined by your favorites, Brian Sexton, John Oehser here. We had day one of OTAs yesterday, which is always a good sign because it means we're getting a little bit closer to the season. Not a ton to glean from it, I guess, but it is always exciting to get back out there, see most of the team yesterday.
Well, exciting is the right word because there's a lot of excitement in this marketplace about this team. People want to hear about them, read about them, see the video of these guys on the field. And it was, and we'll talk about this, but I wrote it for the column that we did for John. It was great to see so many players out there, and it was really good to see some of those guys look good.
And the guys who weren't here are guys you'd expect. Josh Allen, who I know works on his own and has a regimen that he wants to get in the season, and Cam, who's hurt anyway, who would be on the field. So, and Evan Ingram, who
it's business
expected with the tag. It's fine. So, it was good to be out there. I guess it was good for the players to be out there. I don't particularly think that we glean anything from it. The only thing I would glean from it yesterday is you wanted to see Calvin Ridley look the part. He looked the part, unsurprising, but good to check that box.
All right, let's check out big things because we're going to touch on just that coming up. So big thing one is attendance. We just mentioned it. Other than those three players that John just mentioned, there was a lot of people out there. Everybody was in attendance today. Doug Peterson does put some emphasis on the fact it is an optional thing to be a part of OTAs, but he was very happy to see the turnout.
That's why we have such a high percentage of guys that are here, in this type of voluntary, in this world of voluntary off-season program. We have the amount of guys that we do have here. They understand the type of work that we do, and that goes a long way. That goes a long way, not only just this time of the year, but you get into December and January as we talk, and that's where the trust and sort of that camaraderie come into play, but we're building that foundation. Every year is a different year. Every team's a different year. Last year's done, and it's in the rearview mirror, and we're still trying to establish another team this year and putting all those pieces together. But that trust factor, I think, in having that in me and them goes a long way to the reason why I think we have so many people here.
Huge turnout, lots of buy-in. Big thing number two, assignment football. So obviously this time of year, you want to stay healthy. They're just wearing helmets and shorts, no tackling at this point. So a lot of it for Doug, he said, was just focusing on your role on this team and what you have to do come season time.
In this time of the year right now, it's all about just assignment football. There's no contact. The physicality is out of football, and it's just about assignments. And we're wanting to see the young guys, incorporated in there. We want to see the veterans just take another step in leadership and just understanding, what we're asking them to do. And it's just a matter of, not getting anybody hurt this time of year. You just don't want any setbacks that way, this close to camp.
Okay, and big thing three, going to be that new guy we just talked about, Calvin Ridley. The first look we've kind of seen of him with the team actually playing. He was held out of some activities yesterday, not injury-related, just kind of trying to get into the mix with everything. But Press Taylor said he is very excited to have him here.
I've watched every snap Calvin's played in the NFL, just like a lot of our guys have. So we're very confident in the player we're getting. And then to be able to meet him in person, we've had a lot of people that vouch for him, obviously going back to when we acquired him. But the work he's put in this offseason has been impressive, just in terms of meeting the extra work he does. And you can tell he's doing it because he comes in the next day. He's got his list of questions. They're very thought out. You can tell he's peeked ahead of the install or just looking a couple days ahead as we go on. So he's done a great job just intermixing with the group and kind of making his own role.
Certainly is. Let's talk about Calvin. I think that's the guy everybody wanted to have eyes on yesterday, right? In terms of, they're not doing a whole lot, but just to be able to see him out there running with everybody. What were your observations when we did see him in? Because he was held out of a couple of things, John.
I saw one play where he was insanely open for the route he was running.
Yeah.
That's what he does. My understanding, and I haven't heard this anybody officially, but I've heard it sort of in the water, their only concern with him is trying to hold him back so he doesn't hurt himself.
Right.
He's working so hard and he's so into it. I don't know if that's who he is always. My sense is that it is. But right now, trying to get him with this team, so I think that's why he was held out yesterday. They want to make sure he's there for training camp. To me, I saw I needed to see yesterday. Put him on ice and have him ready for July 27th.
You're absolutely right. There are guys who are really great technical route runners, right? And that's how they get open. And he looked like a really great technical route runner. But he didn't get open yesterday because of technicalities. He got open because of athleticism.
Yep.
My just perception, one day, one practice, 1 hour, was that this guy is supremely gifted as an athlete and is polished as a technical receiver. So his ability to do both is what has made him a really good receiver in this league. And just looking at him and Kirk and Zay Jones and imagining Evan Ingram and what they can do with Travis Etienne, and then you kind of mix in Brenton Strange and Tank Bigsby, you can get really excited. But of all those, it's the Ridley part that is the most intriguing just because he's that explosive big play guy.
And this is not a knock on what they had.
What they had was really, really good.
He seems to me a level up of any receiver they've had.
Right.
And not just based on yesterday, but everything you hear and then seeing it yesterday.
Well, his numbers bear that out.
Pure athleticism. Being that sort of a player, I have to believe that Doug and Press are really excited about what that's going to mean for Ridley and then what it's going to mean for the rest of this offense. I think they're going to be, if they stay healthy, it'll be the best offense this team's ever had.
Now, having said that, the best throw of the day was the throw down the middle on play action from Trevor to Christian Kirk, where he caught it over his shoulder. And that was almost, okay, no problem.
Yep.
It was clear, and it should be, that Trevor Lawrence and this offense in year 2 together, he's mastered it. Mastered may be a little strong. He's really got a mastery of it with the opportunity to get even better. Just simply where he's throwing the ball quickly, decisively, didn't look like he didn't expect anything that he saw. And again, we can go on and on because it's OTAs and they're running against air and all of that. But it's just, John, how many times did we talk about it over the years? We were comparing the Jags passing offense, whether it was, Blaine Gabbert or Blake Bortles or whoever the quarterback was, to what you used to see in Indy. And the ball was always on the ground in Jacksonville. Always on the ground. You used to say it was never on the ground in Indy. Yesterday, the ball was in receivers' hands.
Yeah, I didn't make that comparison very often, but
I don't think you were. Let's be clear. He wasn't comparing. But it was pretty clear that an efficient passing offense, the best passing offense, is one where the ball in practice is not on the ground.
The adding of weapons to this offense in an 18-month period, basically. Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne, healthy up. It's been a complete turnover, and again, I think it's got a chance to be one of the top 3 offenses in the league next year.
Yeah.
It's exciting because you don't need to know anything about football to see Calvin Ridley out there and know that he's athletic and he's going to be able to get himself open no matter what the play is. So whether or not, which he's also working really hard to get to understand this offense, but just physically he's able to get himself there.
Well, and then there were a couple of passes yesterday to a guy that we haven't mentioned yet, Jamal Agnew, who won't have to play that role, that sort of switch role, as often because there are more targets. But when you do put him on the field, I mean, he's capable of making a play that very few other guys could. So it's just, and now you mix in Press Taylor and Mike McCoy with Doug Peterson, and there's just a nice, exciting chemistry project going on.
There's no weakness. I mean, last year when you looked at this offense, the one thing you sort of always thought was, well, it maybe don't quite have a 1. Well, it looks like they've got a 1. Now, I don't know. It didn't seem to hold them back last year. But I think what Ridley's going to bring them is more consistency. They got it later in the season anyway. But having a guy who Trevor trusts implicitly on third down, when you think about the real way games play out, you can just see a guy like Ridley giving them one more third down conversion in each half. And think about that, how that can tilt a game in your favor. Yeah. I think he's going to make himself better and everybody on this team better.
And it helps the rest of the group out. You can tell it's getting everybody that little bit of extra out there, right? Because even when you add someone like that, it's not really like it's taking away necessarily from your playing time, because that opens up a lot of stuff for other people, because you've got to cover Calvin Ridley every play. So that's going to open up a lot of stuff for the other wide receivers.
Well, and you talk about getting more out of everyone else. To watch the offensive linemen, right? And it's tough because they're not doing the same things they'll do in summer. But to watch the way that Brandon Sheriff was hitting the bag, right? I mean, we talked last week about Anton Harrison and the difference between the number one pick and a guy who came maybe in the undrafted, right? You see Brandon Sheriff out there hitting the bag, and even Luke Fortner, who's coming back for year 2, and Walker Little, and there's I hesitate to use this word because everyone wants to pick it apart, but there was an intensity. They understand they've got 3 weeks here, and I think in the back of their mind they're thinking, hey, Doug gave us minicamp off last year, right?
Yep.
If we come work really hard, which is what they did last year to get that off.
Yep.
But they also understand that there's something here, and they want to maximize it. They don't want to miss this opportunity. And you could see it across the field yesterday. Both sides of the ball, linemen, defensive backs, wide receivers, they were all working with a level of, hey, man, let's not miss this intensity.
Well, they may, it's hard to predict the future, but they may never be as loaded offensively as they are right now.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
when you have to
quarterback.
re-sign Trevor, it may change the dynamic in terms of, I don't know that they'll have a Zay Jones, Kirk, Ridley, Ingram, Strange. Those seem like they could be 5, 6 really top-end guys. With Trevor signing later, it may come down to where they have 2 really dynamic, and you can win with that.
Yep.
But this group, certainly, you don't get the idea they will be. No group is together forever. The time is now for this group.
You bet. And that was evident on the field yesterday. They see that.
I want to talk a little bit about Doug talking about assignment football, right? So we've gotten to the point, there's a lot of veterans returning to this team. And I think maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys were here, but for the first time, maybe people aren't being asked to do more than their own job. They are literally going to have just very specific roles they're going to fill. We'll talk a little bit about the running back room and, what some of the tight ends are expected to do. But this is exciting when you get to this point because of the depth that they're trying to add to this roster. You're not trying to fill, we're not going to have ETN making every single carry this season. He's going to be able to share that role with some people. And for the first time, when you have a good team, you want to be able to do that and have that versatility.
I think another way to say that, John, is the entire playbook is open. So Doug came in here last year with a young quarterback, and Christian Kirk and Zay Jones and Evan Ingram were sensations. We didn't know they were going to be, right? Now all of a sudden you mix in Calvin Ingram, and what does that do for Jamal Ingram and Tank Bigsby, and what does that do for Travis Etienne? So what you're essentially saying is that Doug, who maybe had a third of what he wanted to do last year, now maybe this year he can go all the way and put plays in that he didn't even thinking about last year.
Yeah, I think you both said it the right way. I think about Christian Kirk, who was a find last year and had a really, really, really good year.
Really good.
I think his role will be more defined and more natural with Ridley here. Not to say Christian can't step up and be a go-to one at times, but I think his role really in the slot, and as somebody who can come out of the slot and play every spot when needed, much more defined for him. And I do think Kai's point is exactly right. You now have a situation where it was Strange. You think by the end of the season you can go to 2 tight end sets. You don't have to have ETN on the field every play. You can have Tank Bigsby on the field at times, giving him some relief. So I said it during the draft. To me, they found a way to get Doug. I don't call it the best offense he's ever had, because Philly was really good in 2017. Yeah. But these receivers on paper are better than Philly's receivers that year. The tight ends, who knows? But it's back to, I think, the full deck of cards that he had in Philly.
And even some of those aces or jokers, if you will. I mean, think about what we heard in 2021 before Travis Etienne got hurt. The different ways they could use him in the slot, in the wing. Now with Tank Bigsby here, Doug and Press can unleash him in a number of creative different ways, and that's Doug's style. Absolutely. Is to be really creative with his matchups. A guy like Etienne, because of Bigsby, that's really interesting to think about how they'll use him and where they can stack him as a wide receiver, maybe behind Kirk or in a 3 receiver formation, a bunch formation with tight ends. I mean, there's no limit to the creativity, and that's what's really cool.
And I don't think it has to take good carries away from Travis.
No. Oh, no, he's still that.
That's always the thing. People want to create controversy. Well, it's going to take carries away from Travis. I think what they can do now with Travis is run him until he needs a break and then not worry about trying to manage his carries necessarily. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, last year, late in the season, every time he was down, because he runs hard, and when you run hard, you get banged up. Sometimes you have to come out of the game. Mm-hmm. You kind of held your breath when he was coming out of the game, hoping he'd find a way to get back in. I don't think you're going to be holding your breath as much with Tank.
No, and let me be more specific with it. Do you remember 2018? They had a package with Leonard Fournette and Corey Grant that they were incredibly excited about because they had so many different clever ways to use them. Corey Grant was a shorter but incredibly fast, elusive back, and of course Leonard is a pounder. And Leonard popped his hamstring on opening day in New York that year, and they never got to unleash it because 3 weeks later, Corey had the foot injury in Kansas City, was dead in the water. Well, now with two backs like this, the possibilities with these two guys is endless because they're both different style runners.
And in the current NFL, you have to have multiple running backs. That's just by the nature of that position. People are going to get hurt, and you don't want you don't want Etienne making the bulk of those carries. You want to give him some breaks. We're going to actually hear from him. It's coming up in the B block. We'll hear from the players after OTA day number 1, so stay with us for that.
At 5-Star Credit Union, you inspire them to go the extra mile to meet your financial needs. That's why they offer Jaguars fans more banking options like better rates and no hidden fees. Their team is also dedicated to making the communities they serve stronger, volunteering their time and talents while donating millions to local nonprofits. 5-Star Credit Union, 5starcu.org. Go Jags!
It's time to play Fix That Plumbing Problem. What do you do if you have a leaky pipe? Contestant 1.
Put a bucket under it?
That's it?
And maybe a towel?
Contestant 2. That's right! Just call the duck.
Clogged drains, leaky pipes to full repipes, just call the pros at Duck Duck Rooter. Commercial, residential, any plumbing issue.
When you're stuck, call the duck. 904-862-6769.
And that's a Magellan first down.
Move the freight. Move the freight. Move the freight. Would you like to control your own income? Work at Magellan Transport. Voted the coolest office space in Duval. Bring your talents and let your career flourish. Visit their website at MagellanLogistics.com and apply online. Trust service. Trust Magellan.
Welcome back to Drive Time. Here today on Tuesday, May 23rd, I'm Kainani Stevens. Brian and John with me here today. We got to see a little bit, over an hour and a half actually yesterday, of OTA day number 1 in the books for 2023. And they don't do a ton out there, but we did get to speak to them after, and that's always nice. And as we mentioned earlier, a great attendance other than a couple of guys that we kind of expected wouldn't be here right now. So I do want to talk, I got to catch up with Rayshawn Jenkins, and obviously he's always vocal, he likes to talk, but he was saying that, after last year, one of his best seasons here in Jacksonville, he's really looking forward to kind of improving upon, and that they're really thinking about that big game in February.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw just the potential that our team had, and that small little bit of success that we were able to have, and I feel like guys are just more hungry for that, and I feel like that's just a good, it's just a good goal to chase, that Super Bowl. Everybody wants a Super Bowl, but the work starts now. You got to put in the work now, and it doesn't come easy. We got a saying, work to win. You're not just going to step out there and win. You got to work for it right now.
Hopefully speaking it into existence, I would imagine.
He's a great example, John, because remember in 2021, he was a liability in coverage, right? Now, part of the problem is that they had all sorts of issues in 2021. But you didn't know what you were going to get from him in 2022. You hoped that he would be that guy that Trent Baalke talked about when they signed him in the spring of 2021. And, of course, he gave us two of the most memorable plays in Jaguars history. The interception in overtime that beat the Cowboys and the sack that set up the game-winning touchdown by Josh Allen that put this team in the playoffs. I mean, those are two of the top 5 defensive plays in NFL history. Or, sorry, not NFL, Jaguars history. Jaguars history.
Yes.
And they came from Rayshawn Jenkins. So now if Devin Lloyd, right, or Trayvon Walker more particularly, takes a huge step like he did from year 1 to year 2.
Oh, gosh.
Holy cow, right? But I look at him and I think, my goodness, none of us saw last year coming. And now you look at him and expect him to make plays like that.
Well, Rayshawn sort of defined the defense in a way last year.
You bet he did.
It wasn't really a great defense. It had stretches where you worried about it, but it also was 4th in the league in takeaways. They made plays when they were there to be made. And Rayshawn certainly defined that. I'm not sure he was great in coverage all year, but when those plays were there to be made, he made them. You're sort of walking on a little bit of a line when you do that, but that's the way this defense is going to have to play.
I think it's exciting, too, when you see a team, obviously, that shows flashes, right? Because if you have that ability in you, we know that ability is there. A lot of it's going to be, continuity, being able to do that all season long. And I really feel like that's the focus right now because, obviously, they didn't finish the season. Everybody wants to win a Super Bowl, so other than the Chiefs, everybody was unhappy with the way their season finished last year. But you really feel like they turned the page a little bit, but they're focused on just continuing that and not putting themselves in a hole where they have to win a bunch of games in a row at the end of the year.
At this time last year, we were talking about the Jaguars learning to trust. You remember that was a big conversation because Doug talked about it. Mm-hmm. The Urban Meyer thing was just such a disaster. And we're like, okay, how long will it take them to recover?
Yeah.
A year later, we're talking about them talking about being in the Super Bowl.
And
right?
that alone is impressive.
And
yeah.
that tells you what Doug and Trent and their entire staff on both sides were able to do last year. But it tells you how much this team believes in their quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Rayshawn Jenkins is not talking about the pass rush is going to take down the quarterback.
No.
He don't have to say it. They believe in the quarterback. They know what he's capable of doing.
And obviously, you talk about mental toughness and visualization and what you need to do in the offseason, but there's a lot of places where people won't even say that. They're like, we're taking it one game at a time, and they won't even think that way. But there's several players we've talked to in the offseason, and that really is a focus for them this year. Super Bowl is a thought in their mind, and it's nice to be at a spot where you're like, yeah, that could actually happen. It's not a far-fetched, crazy idea.
Nope.
Yeah, ratchet it up a little bit, improve in a couple of key areas, and that's within reach for this team.
It's very exciting, I think. We're going to talk a little bit about Travis Etienne because we mentioned him earlier, and that running back room is really exciting. He talked a little bit about what he's seen out of Tank Bigsby so far and what it's like working with him.
I like Tank. I feel like he's very passionate. I feel like he loves the game of football, and I feel like that's the guys you want around you. That's the guys who's going to push you to be great each and every day because he's looking up to me, and I want to be a great example for him. I want him to see how it is to be a professional. So he's going to push me to get better, and I'm going to push him to get better.
He also talked a little bit about taking the load off of him. He's excited about it, which, some people could see it as competition, less carries for me. I want more carries, but he's excited. He's like, oh, yeah, take some of the hits off me. I'll be able to play a little bit more and be a little more outside of the box. Put it that way.
Everyone wants to be their best. But what I understand about him, and he talks about it when he talks about he and Trevor in particular, he's a winner. He came from Clemson where all they did was win.
Mm-hmm.
That kid wants to win.
Whatever
right?
it takes, yeah.
Whatever it takes. If it means that he has 4 or 5 less carries a game, I don't think he cares. I think winning. You can hear it in his voice. You can see it in his eyes. Mm-hmm. If you're standing around him, in front of him, it might not come through on the video, but he's all about winning. And he knows he's going to contribute. He's very confident in his ability.
Travis really surprised me last year. I knew he was good. I didn't realize that he was as tough a runner as he is. And I'm telling you, Kai, when you watch this kid play, he's inside the tackles, and if he's being brought down, he never gives up on a play, and therefore he takes a lot of punishment. I don't think he can be great, Travis, unless he is running that way, meaning unless he is giving everything he's got on every play. I don't think he's a step out of bounds running back. If you're going to be that kind of a player right now in this league as a running back, you need another guy in the backfield with you. So I think Bigsby, I'm glad that I think Travis sort of sees that. I think it's what he's sort of saying when he says that. And I think it'll be a really good backfield combination. And I think it will benefit him even if it takes, 2 carries away a game.
I think that's exciting, the combo of them together. Also, Etienne mentioned how much he appreciates Doug's perspective of if he does fumble or put the ball on the ground, that he's still going to get the ball back. He's not a coach that's like, okay, you're not touching it for the rest of the game. So that's not something he fears with another running back in the room. He knows he's still going to get the ball back. And with running backs, a lot of it is confidence and trust that if you do mess up, you can still get it back. Because if you get in their own head about it, sometimes that can backfire on you. But it's nice to hear that he's so appreciative of the relationship he has with Doug.
Well, I appreciate about the fact, how many times last year we were like, oh, because he had a tendency to lose the ball.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he
right?
needs to appreciate that less this year.
Yeah. And
fair enough.
But the point being is that he rebounded.
Yeah.
And
yes.
was, you can argue that his 25-yard run out here to set up the game-winning field goal was, the pivotal game of this play of the season, right? I mean, it was an amazing run. And for a guy who struggled with the ball in traffic at times, so his confidence level is really, really high. I wasn't sure what we were going to get from him. But his explosiveness was awe-inspiring.
Yeah, from talking to Doug early in the season, at Combine or somewhere, I got the impression they really, really think that Travis is going to improve a lot. He wasn't talking about the fumbles, but remember, last year was Travis's first year in the NFL and playing at a level where he got hit a lot. And he was playing against players who were as good as he was. He got run down a couple of times, and I still think it's because he had never been run down at Clemson because he was always playing against people he was better than. So I think the fumbles may have had something to do with that too. I think you'll see a much better, more polished version of Travis Etienne this year. Does he have the same amount of yardage? I don't know, but I think he'll be a more effective player this year.
Exciting for sure. We're going to check in our last soundbite here from the players. Walker Little, obviously, offensive line is something there's a lot of moving pieces there right now. But he was just talking about getting ready for the season and the opportunity to play.
Time to kind of de-stress and calm down and relax a little bit. But then, definitely, especially the last few weeks being back here, it's been time to kind of crank it up and start working on the technique. I mean, obviously, we don't want anyone to get suspended or hurt or anything. We don't want Cam to miss time. But, it's a chance for me to play, and I'm excited about that.
So obviously Cam Robinson potentially out. We don't have full details on that yet. Anton Harrison, your first round draft pick, going to come in here and be on the right side. There's room for movement. There's a lot of versatility, which Doug loves because he feels like he can play people in different positions. John, what are you looking at with this starting or going to training camp, I should say?
I laughed when I was talking to Walker. That was a short part of the conversation. I was there most of the time, and I kind of asked him at the end, I said, so if Cam comes back or move around, sort of getting to the idea that, he's going to start the season at left tackle. What happens if he moves around?
Yep.
And he kind of laughed and he said, I've moved everywhere on this. He's moved around so much that he basically says he comes to work every day and just kind of listens to what Phil wants him to do. Phil Rosher. And he had a great attitude about it. He said, I've been doing this 2 years. I've been on the right side, the left side, whatever. Mark Long from the Associated Press asked him if he was a right tackle or a left tackle, and he said, whatever. So I think he really has a good attitude toward it. I think he will be the left tackle, if not all this year, moving forward after that. I think he's going to be good at that. But I love his attitude toward it right now. He's a pro now, Brian. He's ready for whatever comes at him.
Well, I can remember standing with Tony Baselli and Jeff Lageman at training camp his rookie year, 2021, and they marveled at how athletic he is, right? So we talk about Calvin Ridley, and you can see the athleticism because he's running and he's jumping. You don't see that with an offensive lineman. It was the way that he was, deep in his stance and able to turn his body back to the inside and make eye contact with the quarterback that impressed these two guys, right? He is a really gifted athlete, and he's always looked the part. And then late last year, he got the chance to actually act the part out. I'm going on the whole acting thing again.
Very nice.
He is a really gifted athlete and football player. And I'm with you, John. I think he's going to plug in there on the left side, and it's going to be hard to move him out.
Certainly the mentality is good, right? Obviously, offensive line, they're always pretty selfless in general, just by nature. But to hear that, he's willing to play wherever it is. And we've learned from past seasons that injury bug tends to hit there. So it's not the worst thing in the world to have more than a couple of bodies that can play multiple positions. So that is definitely key for them. So coming up, we're going to do Ozone Snapshot, get a look at some of your questions for John, and we'll give you the answers. Stay with us.
We serve up a lot of different things at Dailies, but there's one ingredient that goes in everything we make. That's quality. Whether it's a piled high breakfast biscuit, a sub, or tacos and quesadillas for the whole family, you get more delicious choices and quality all the way, all day. Quality meats, quality fixings, quality everything, right down to the quality person that makes it for you. That's what we know Jacksonville deserves. Quality made fresh. Dailies.
At Five Star Credit Union, you inspire them to go the extra mile to meet your financial needs. That's why they offer Jaguars fans more banking options like better rates and no hidden fees. Their team is also dedicated to making the communities they serve stronger, volunteering their time and talents while donating millions to local nonprofits. Five Star Credit Union, ViStarCU.org. Go Jags!
Ready to go nuts? Fresh, hot, salty, boiled peanuts. The roadside stand flavor that made the South famous is now available at all Jaguars home games. The Ray Peanut Company puts a little South in your mouth with the briny perfection of their original recipe or peppery kick of their authentic Cajun recipe. Packed with protein and superfood nutrition, they're the MVP of snacks. Get them at the game or from your grocer's freezer and enjoy them at home. Go Jags, go Ray, go nuts.
This broadcast is Ozone friendly.
The Ozone.
Welcome in, your favorite time of the week, Ozone Mailbag. We get to check in with John. You can ask all of the questions you want, and he will give you the answers. We're going to check out question number 1. Bradley from Sparks, Nevada says, the Jaguars went from a Tier 5 team to the top of Tier 2 in one season. Do you think if they stay healthy that they will be a top 2 seed in the AFC this year?
Well, I think if they stay healthy, they can be. The reason I hesitate is the top 3 in the AFC are really good.
Yeah. Yes,
so I think you can be a lot better than you were last year. I think you can be a really good team. I even think you can be a team that in some years in the AFC might have gone to the Super Bowl. But it's also very conceivable that you have a really good year next year. You run into the Bengals I guess the question was seeding. So it would be, are you going to have the second best record in the AFC? I doubt it. Frankly, I think they'll be really, really good. I'm thinking they can be 11, 12 wins ish. But I think they're still going to be a young team that has some flubs. They can do it. I don't think it's a failure at all if they're the 3 or 4 seed against 3 very, very good franchises right now.
Well, so he asks if they stay healthy, and there's another side to that coin, and that is, does Pat Mahomes stay healthy? Does Joe Burrow stay healthy?
Right.
Is Jamar Chase on the field? What happens with Josh Allen? I remember 1999, the Jets, coming off of an AFC championship game, were the favorite in the AFC, and the Jaguars were thought to be the second or third best team in the league. Vinny Testaverde pops his Achilles tendon, the first or second series of their opening day game in New York, and all of a sudden, they're playing with Rick Meyer and Mark Brunell and the Jags.
Totally different season.
Right,
Yeah.
totally different season. So it isn't just about you staying healthy. It's about what does your opponent look like by the time you get to see them.
It's so hard to predict, obviously. And then you even
Totally.
see the Chiefs, maybe like last year, the last couple of years, they lose a couple of regular season games they probably should have won, and they end up, dealing with lower seeding than they probably should have. So
Right.
sometimes that doesn't even matter until you get into the playoffs, right? So I guess we'll wait and see. I'm not a big prediction of records because it's so
I
hard
think
to
they're
tell.
going to be a team now that you talk about as a potential conference finalist.
Yes.
Every year.
Yeah.
And how it falls, attrition, how other teams play, it all play into that. But I think they're going to be good.
And look, we've missed on predictions year after year after year. However, last year we said, right, 7-8 wins, and at the outset, if everything goes right, 9. Right? And at
There you
one
go.
point, they're 2-6, and you're thinking, well, that doesn't look very good. And then it happens, right?
I was going to say. I don't think you had that order, though, right?
No, no. Didn't pick them. Just said 7, 8, 9, and it played out that way because the quarterback got hot and found a rhythm with his receivers, and the defense did just enough.
All right, let's check in on special teams for question 2. Justin from Duval, of course. Do you expect any more kicker drama this upcoming season, or does Riley Patterson have that spot locked up? John, what do you think?
Credit to Riley, because when I first got this question, I couldn't remember the kicker drama. And then it sort of jogged my memory. Remember, they had in training camp, I think it was 37 kickers.
And we were getting kicked daily.
Yeah. So does he have it locked up? I think he's the guy going in.
Yeah.
I think right now, the comparison I would use is Logan Cook, for example. Logan Cook is the lockdown punter on this team, and he has shown he is an elite punter in the NFL. I don't think Riley's there. I think he has shown that he can kick in this league and that he can be a good kicker. I think it's his. I don't know that they are just jumping over themselves to get him out. I think if he continues to perform as he did last year, I think he'll be fine.
It's his until it's not, right? I mean,
Right. Yes.
It's one of your famous sayings. If he goes into camp and he performs well, there's no reason to make a change. But he was a little bit errant. There were some kicks late in the year last year that you went, is that going to go?
Right.
So he's going to have a good camp, and then he's going to have to perform. And if he does, I think he's the kind of guy who can develop and become a long-term guy. Is he Justin Tucker? No, who is? There aren't many of those guys. And if you find him, you go draft him. But Riley had a good year last year and made a couple of really big kicks. So I don't see why he wouldn't be.
Kicking is such a fickle position because you feel like they have it locked up. They have a couple bad games, and then depending on how your coaching staff feels about it, you could have 2, 3, 4 new guys in here the next week.
I was on the sidelines as he lined up to kick that one against the Chargers last year. I'd been upstairs with Fred, and we came down, and we're standing there, and I just put myself in his shoes for a moment and thought, here, they were down 27-0. They battled back. They have a chance to win the game, and it's all on you. I mean, put yourself in that pressure-packed situation for just a moment. If he can make that kick, I mean, that's a guy that you like. You want him to, makes it here.
Yes.
Not just at the foot. So I good luck to him. He's better not miss an extra point in the preseason because everyone's going to be calling for, was it James McCourt?
It's always somebody, right? He'll have his chance, though. All right, we're going to wrap things up with John from Jacksonville, who says, if you ask me, the current state of the stadium is the best it has ever been. So is the underbelly of the stadium that bad? Doesn't look bad to me.
The underbelly isn't great. We got a little leak back here this morning.
We're in the underbelly, so.
But it's, look, I'm kidding. We do have a leak. But it's fine. I can deal with that. I understand there are people who see this stadium and they come in, and it is probably as nice as it's been in a long time with the video, with the amenities.
Forward-facing, fan-facing.
The clubs have been terrific but when they made those changes and they made those improvements over the last decade, at no point did they ever think, okay, we're making these improvements, we're fine, we don't need a new stadium. It was always knowledge that right now is going to be about the end of, to use Mark's phrase, at the end of useful life. All you have to do is go around the league to 32 stadiums and see that this one is behind the rest. And if they don't do something about it, it's going to be woefully behind the rest. I guess it probably already is. So you can argue, you can wonder, whatever. A new stadium or a major upgrade has to happen for this team to at least hang on and be in the conversation revenue-wise with the rest of the NFL.
It's awful. I've been here for 29 years. On this hallway underneath, it has always leaked. It's always been. They built the stadium in 19 months because they didn't want to go play in Gainesville, and they put the stadium up, and it's fine. Okay, but in terms of the space that football has, the space that the front office has, the quality of it. I mean, it's leaking in here. Come on, it's a studio, right? And it's not that they don't try to fix it, but it's hard to do that. Yes. Let alone the expansion joints around this place and the air conditioning, and I'm not qualified to tell you what's wrong with it. It looks old, and if you don't fix it now, it will cost you so much more because you won't be able to use the bones of the stadium, as Mark has said, to be able to build and renovate. At some point, you go, well, I can't. I got to just tear that all the way down. So they're making a decision now based on, as John just said, useful life. But what you can't see, you don't want to see. Trust me.
You have a marquee talent in Trevor Lawrence. You got to build around him, right? You got to make it somewhere people want to come watch football games.
100%.
And when you look at some of these other stadiums going in, not that we have to go that far, but SoFi, Las Vegas, like some of these places are amazing.
Well, they're about to open the Miller Electric Center, which is a spectacular,
huge jump. We should give them credit for that. Huge jump up.
Huge jump up. Because if you want to play with the best teams in this league, you've got to be on an even preparation field, from the classrooms to the weight room to the meals to all of those things. And that facility is what this facility needs to become.
It's the biggest, most popular professional sport in the country.
Yes.
If you're going to play in this league,
you've got to compete.
You have to pay to be in this league in terms of stadium.
Yep.
And the facility should reflect that for sure, especially for these guys coming out of college, because some of their facilities are better there than maybe they were here. But we are very excited about that practice facility going in, hopefully opening up in a couple of weeks. All right, stick with us. We'll be right back. We'll give you a preview of what we've got coming up the rest of the week now that OTAs are underway.
At Five Star Credit Union, you inspire them to go the extra mile to meet your financial needs. That's why they offer Jaguars fans more banking options like better rates and no hidden fees. Their team is also dedicated to making the communities they serve stronger, volunteering their time and talents while donating millions to local nonprofits. Five Star Credit Union, FiveStarCU.org. Go Jags!
And that's a Magellan first down.
Move the freight! Move the freight! Move the freight! Would you like to control your own income? Work at Magellan Transport. Voted the coolest office space in Duval. Bring your talents and let your career flourish. Visit their website at MagellanLogistics.com and apply online. Trust service. Trust Magellan. As the official dentist of the Jacksonville Jaguars, ASAP Dental is a champion of the dental game. Let them win you over with full-service dental care and the same-day smile you deserve. Open 7 days a week, ASAP Dental has 8 locations to serve you in the Northeast Florida area. So come see them today. With their exceptional experience and care, you're always treated as the MVP. Visit asapdentalcare.com or call 904-500-2727 to book your appointment today.
Move the freight, move the freight. Magellan Transport voted coolest office space in Jacksonville. You can apply online at www.magellanlogistics.com if you want to check it out. The OTAs kicked off yesterday. We were able to dodge the rain out there, so that was nice because the rest of the week looks like it's going to be really rainy, probably inside. But we do have some stuff coming up this week. Bucky Brooks is in the building. We saw him out yesterday, so he'll be here for to join JP later on this week. And John, what are you working on?
Well, I'll be also on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On that podcast.
Yes, you're the star. You're the star. I apologize.
Not to mention,
right?
You know,
and I expect we are trying to get Tyson Campbell for the Ozone podcast,
nice.
And if things go well, we will have that on posting on Thursday.
And the reason Bucky's here, just to give folks a flavor of how close we are, is we've got preseason television meetings.
Yes, we do.
Right. So we're not that far away. I mean, we're already starting to talk about that. It's right around the corner.
Oh, so very, very exciting. Hopefully, no news is good news for the rest of OTAs because we're not too much going on, but we will check in with them after the long weekend on Tuesday. So thank you for joining us. That's it for Jags Drive Time today.